Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's talk. We're going to give a few minutes for people to jump in, and then we will start promptly here shortly. Thanks. Again, hello, everybody, for joining today. We're just going to take a couple more minutes, and for anybody else to join, we'll just allow them to join in here. We'll start shortly. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we're going to get started here today. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will address them at the Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. But without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar with SafeBreach. My name is Brandon Stevens, and I'm a business development manager here at SafeBreach, and I will be happy to be your host for today's webinar. Here's how we structured the talk for today, and let's give you a quick summary. Why the cloud, the evolving threat landscape, challenges with securing your cloud, who we are and what we do at SafeBreach and breach and attack simulation. Then we will have a short demo, and then also we will jump to a Q&A and address any questions that the audience might have for today's talk. Today we have the presentation will be presented by two speakers here from the SafeBreach side. First, we have Eliezer Serkiryansky. Eliezer is a product manager here at SafeBreach, and he's been tightly involved in the cloud capabilities developed within the SafeBreach platform. He's highly passionate and enthusiastic about creating great products that empower users and solve real problems. A great product to him, amongst many other things, is a product that occasionally puts a smile on your face. In his free time, he loves to travel, play beach volleyball, and cook for people he loves. And then we also have Cowstub Jagtap, also known as KJ. He's SafeBreach's senior product marketing manager with over 12 years of technology marketing experience. Originally, he was a telecom engineer by education, but has always been passionate about cybersecurity. He loves distilling difficult technical ideas and concepts into easy to understand language. He's a big nerd and loves Marvel movies and the Star Wars universe. He's also an amateur photographer specializing in capturing naturescapes and historical building architecture. In his free time, he loves to travel and scuba dive. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Eliezer and KJ for presenting the talk for today.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Brandon. A very good afternoon, good morning to everyone who has joined us today. So, cloud is omnipresent today. So why do the enterprises prefer the cloud? And, why why the continued move to the cloud? It was estimated that in 2021, public cloud infrastructure would actually grow by about 35%. And this cloud spend has actually expanded its lead over on-premise software spend. And it now typically kind of represents about 30% of the overall enterprise spend. And this is up from about 25%. And so that's a massive thing. And about 61% of the organizations, they do plan to focus on cloud migration. So why do they want to do this? Obviously, there are some of the pretty standard benefits are the reduced cost of operating your enterprise, the improved performance of IT operations, the ability to scale up or down without incurring massive capital expenses, the improved agility and efficiency due to data modernization. You have data that is sitting in on-prem, old, archaic data centers. They want to move it to from legacy databases to more modern databases. Additionally, it also offers increased security. There's a reduced risk of data loss. Their deployments are much faster, and there is an opportunity for faster collaboration. There's enhanced flexibility and improved agility. You can easily bring up or bring down a cloud instance that would help you in your business process efficiencies. But this doesn't mean that it's all hunky-dory and everything is great on the cloud side. This move to the cloud can also open up several opportunities for attackers to cause damage. And according to actually the IBM Cost of Data Breach report in 2021, the average time to identify and contain a cloud breach is approximately 252 days, of which the 180 days it takes to just identify the breach, and 70 days or so it takes to actually contain that breach. And that's still a lot of time. And the average cost of a cloud data breach for a public cloud is nearly $4.8 million of each breach. And that's a lot of money. Additionally, according to the latest Verizon DBIR report, for the first time last year in 2020, cloud incidents actually surpassed on-prem incidents, with nearly 73% of the incidents, they involved cloud-based assets. So this means that as the cloud companies continue migrating to the cloud, the cyber risk is only escalating. It provides its benefits, but the cyber risk is also escalating because the threat landscape is also evolving. And so what are some of the challenges that enterprises might face with securing your cloud environment? With the adoption of cloud, security strategies have evolved. There are new tools, a new whole set of tools have come up to manage these strategies, including terms like CASB, Posture Managed CSPM, CWPP. These tools are extremely helpful, but they can also cause massive issues for underprepared teams, potentially because of the deployment complexity that is involved in adding all these tools to your cloud stack and all the interconnections that pretty much go into place to ensure that everything smoothly works from your on-prem to your cloud environment to anywhere in the middle with hybrid environments. These tools, as I said, increase complexity. And because there is a complex hybrid mix of on-prem architecture with public clouds and private clouds, there are a whole set of diverse range of range of vendors, platforms, and technologies. Each of them have their own specific security requirements, and you have to understand that cloud deployments can come up in a matter of hours. So there's always this rapid pace of change. VMs get deployed, new networks get built up in a matter of a day, and so you have to be able to dynamically adjust your security controls to be able to withstand any of these changes. So you have to also understand that with the speed of adoption of these technologies, new vulnerabilities can potentially rise at any time. And attackers, they don't sit still. They're relentless. The threats are only getting more sophisticated. And they try and hit you where you least expect it. And because now there is an increased number of vendors that you potentially now have in your stack, one vulnerability could potentially spell a lot of damage for you. You could make one small configuration change in one of your cloud vendors, and potentially that could accidentally change something on a connected device. It could be a security tool, it could be a cloud control. And that is just about enough for a relentless attacker who's constantly scanning environments to figure out, where could I potentially breach a vulnerability, to open up the door for a potential attack. So this is something that is causing a lot of headache to underprepared security teams, security organizations. Any minor cloud misconfigurations can potentially lead to a massive challenge. And I'm not going to go through these examples. I'm going to just leave them on here. But what ends up happening is a small vulnerability that could potentially be exploited can potentially lead to a large security gap. And most of the times, as you saw with the statistics, because it takes nearly 250 days to discover and contain a breach, most of these gaps are potentially only identified after the fact, after a breach has happened. And that can spell huge monetary, financial, brand losses for your company and your enterprise. And this pretty much poses a big challenge for security teams to be able to adapt to this constantly changing dynamic attack surface. Security teams need some sort of a way to automate the process of proactively testing not just your security controls, but also your cloud controls against the latest and greatest real life attack techniques to identify these gaps, identify your risk, and fix it before the attacker does. So what does Gartner? Everybody considers Gartner to be the main people to recommend strategy and stuff. Gartner does realize this problem, and no matter what you say about them, they've identified this and hit the nail on the head. That in actually their latest report, the Top Security and Risk Management Trends of 2021, Gartner has actually recommended that security and risk leaders adopt tools to provide continuous defensive posture assessments. And they've actually called out breach and attack simulation specifically. They've said that these breach and attack simulation tools are emerging to provide continuous defensive posture assessments. They talk about how BAS tools or breach and attack simulation tools can help you actually prioritize future investments. What they mean by that is if there are some underperforming security controls, you can actually test out their efficiency against latest and greatest attacks or even known attacks and identify the right tool for to be purchased in the future. They also let you identify what kind of a path would an attacker take with with their standard TTPs and even some of the newer attack TTPs. Because once you identify that attacker path, you can effectively put prevention mechanisms in place so that the attacker doesn't follow that path. And you're able to do all of this in your production environment, but in a safe and controlled manner. So that provides a huge benefit. Additionally, if you have detection mechanisms in place, the BAS tool will actually let you understand and identify efficiency gaps. It will test if your security tools are performing like the way they're supposed to. They identify the gaps by saying, hey, this was not blocked, this was not alerted, this did block. So, you can actually get a real-time assessment of where your tools lie in detecting and blocking potentially a real attack. And again, if you are wanting to put any new investments or if you want to test any new tools in your environment, rather than purchase it and then make a decision that then understand that, oh, I've made a big regrettable decision, you can potentially test out any new controls or any new tools that you might bring in your environment to see if they are actually serving their purpose. So what is the safe breach and attack simulation? So the safe breach and attack simulation platform is a tool that allows organizations, enterprises to run or execute real life attacks in their production environments in a safe and controlled manner. And we don't do this at static intervals. Of course, you can choose to do them at certain intervals to test your efficiencies at certain levels. But of course, what we recommend and what Gartner recommends is that you continually test your environments against these attacks so that you understand that as the attacker continues to evolve, your posture and your security controls adapt to that changing threat landscape. What this also, as I mentioned, allows you to do is you are able to test your security posture against the latest and greatest threats, and you can test the efficacy of your controls to on-prem as well as cloud controls to basically discover those security gaps. And once you've identified those gaps, we don't just stop there. By integrating with vulnerability management tools, we can actually help you prioritize those gaps that are exploitable. And how do we do that? We basically allow you to find or prioritize gaps by letting you know that, hey, by just breaching this one particular gap or vulnerability, an attacker could potentially gain access to your crown jewels. So you don't want to do that. Just fix this rather than some a vulnerability that might be sitting behind 5 layers of security controls. So we help you not only identify those gaps, but also prioritize gaps that are exploitable. And additionally, we holistically remediate them. So we provide you critical insights that can help you actually fix those gaps. So we don't just give you what your gaps are. We don't just display them, but we also give you actionable information that can help you defend your enterprise against these attacks. So let's just quickly take a look. When I talked about executing real world attacks, and as I mentioned, we are able to actually we allow enterprises to run these attacks. We have close to 20,000 plus attacks in our playbook, and we allow you to run them against a wide variety of security controls, including DLP vendors, any of your web-based controls, your endpoints, EDRs, XDRs, your network controls, email gateways, and containers and clouds, everything. And we classify them, make them easy for you to find by classifying them against the known threat groups, the APT29s of the world. There are different tactics and techniques. For example, somebody uses dark side ransomware or any new ransomware that might be happening. So we allow you to actually identify them, and we actually allow you to run them. Additionally, you can actually mix and match and build custom attacks. You can use and leverage your existing threat intelligence provider to build new attacks that might be customized for your specific environment, which is really cool because you already have threat intelligence in place. You're using that threat intelligence to feed into your other security controls. But now you want to test if that control is performing just the way it was intended to. So you can actually build attacks, run them in your environment, and see if the control is able to actually stop that attack. Additionally, we have a really close partnership with MITRE. So we actually leverage the MITRE attack framework, the V9, the latest version, and we are able to actually able to let organizations run attacks as per the MITRE tactics and techniques. And as I mentioned, we have more than 20,000 attacks in our attack playbook at this point. And so, it's not just necessary to run those attacks. You need to understand what it resulted into. So we can actually let people, once they've run the simulations or once they've run the simulated real attacks, we can actually map them according to the MITRE tactic and technique and show you a nice heat map that you can actually see here. And additionally, we provide you risk scores. We actually provide you, as I mentioned before, it's easier and necessary to understand how the attacker could have potentially executed. So we actually give you the whole kill chain, and you can actually drill down and see what effect that attacker or that tactic would have had on each of your controls or on your endpoint network devices. And additionally, we don't just stop at that. It's important for security leaders like you to take that information and communicate it upwards to, say, your CIO, CEO, the board of directors. We provide several easy to understand dashboards that can help you communicate and actually tie in that security risk to business risk in a way that they would understand in terms of dollars, so that they can help you get additional funding to make those necessary security investment decisions. Lastly, as I mentioned, you don't want to just run attacks and just look at them. You need to be able to take action against them. This is where our insights module that provides actionable and prioritized remediation helps. We actually categorize these insights by security controls, and we gather them by executing attacks against your controls, and then provide you an easy way to determine what action needs to happen next. You can either choose to execute individual remedial controls, like say your XDR, your network device, or so on, or you can choose to leverage your SIM or SOAR solutions to aggregate that change. And we not only provide you information on like a high level that, hey, if I were to pass something to my SIM or SOAR solution on a high level package, like these are actually downloadable packages, or if you're connected to an API, you can actually send that package to your SIM or SOAR or your other security controls. You can actually look at individual controls to see what could be, what needs to be done. And we don't just send this, we can then automatically then run or rerun the test to revalidate everything that has happened. So you first ran an attack, you identified those gaps, you took that remedial information, passed it on to the controls, fixed those misconfigurations, and then we run that attack again to see if all the holes that were plugged in, are they still staying the way they're supposed to, or has something not worked? So this is where the continuous posture assessment and continuous testing comes into play. And one other key thing that I was talking about, I talked about a lot of security controls. We like security teams comprise of individual silos. There's a network team, there's the endpoint team, there's the email team. We want to create synergy between these siloed security solutions to actually be able to provide you with an actual risk score, so that you can take like a holistic decision of how do I defend my enterprise. And we want to promote cross-functional mitigation efficiency. And we kind of do that by integrating with a lot of technology partners, including network, endpoints, SIMs, VM tools, SOARs, automation platforms, and so on. So now let me kind of quickly go to the topic at hand. Obviously, we looked at safe breach, and cloud controls are no different than on-prem controls. They're just controls that you need to secure. So how do we protect or maximize the security of your cloud-based assets? We have dedicated cloud native breach and attack simulation scenarios in our tool that Eliezer will cover shortly. We can then, to run these scenarios, we can visualize and identify the gaps, identify those misconfigurations on your cloud controls that could potentially trigger a vulnerability that can create a gap. We are able to provide those insights that can help you remediate these things holistically. But and additionally, we also allow DevOps teams to make the whole planning to a cloud migration a lot easier. So now I'll just shut up and hand it over to Eliezer for his magic. You might be on mute, Eliezer.
I'll just jump in here to remind everybody, if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will address them when we get to the Q&A portion of the presentation. And we will, right now we're just allowing Eliezer to jump on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Conduct the demo. Oh, yes, we can hear you though, Laser.
Testing. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Laser.
Here you go. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the great presentation and the introduction to what SafeBridge is trying to do with breach and attack simulation. Great statistics, and the need for cloud security is very prominent these days. And I'm going to take a sharp turn into some of the cloud aspects of our platform. And before I go into the demo and show how you can explore and attack and test some of your cloud infrastructure, I want to go over some of the multiple layers of cloud that SafeBridge tries to cover. And I want to note on and try to emphasize one thing that you said on the previous slide is how the cloud environment is not very different from an on-prem, and it's an extension and an evolution of it. And we like looking at the cloud in three main aspects: the data plane, the control plane, and the third one, which will be the cloud services. And I want to focus on the data plane and see how we support the cloud architecture from the very bottom. And what I mean by bottom is that when SafeBridge started, we of course came out with attacks and coverage and installations of deployment for the main architectures that were out, which were of course Mac, Linux, and Windows. And later on, containers came along, and we're gaining a lot of traction in the world. And we also supported simulator deployments for them also. And this data plane is basically kind of where all the workloads in the cloud work. So customers that are trying to migrate from on-premise to cloud are trying to mimic their data planes on-premise to the cloud infrastructure. And that's somewhere that we help, and we allow them to extend their testing to the without intentionally integrating natively with cloud. And talking about cloud services, you still have environments, you still have network controls and endpoint EDRs or advanced cloud work protection platforms that can still benefit from a lot of the data plane coverage that we provide, and I'll show later on. So you can still deploy simulators on all major cloud infrastructures out of the box, whether you're running on Alibaba Cloud, Oracle, AWS, whatever it is. If you have VMs and instances and containers deployed, our simulators and our agents can be also deployed there to provide that initial, backbone of breach and attack simulation. So you can test your endpoint controls, your network controls, and data loss protection. A lot of things can be done without integrating natively, which is some of the latest features that we lately introduced to our platform. And we introduced them to provide an extension to some of the attack scenarios that we saw in the wild. And those were attacks and actions against control plane. And the control plane in the cloud to us, and this is all defined by Gartner, how the distinguished data plane and control plane. Control plane is where the configurations and those new aspects of cloud and the services are managed. So we now integrate as a platform with major cloud providers to provide you additional action and to extend our testing capability against cloud on the control planes. Whether some examples would be IAM services, storage services, configurations, discoveries, and so forth on the control plane. So we definitely added these things in order to provide better cloud visibility, testing of policies, and access validation, helping understand what is visible to you in the cloud, and some use cases that I'll later show from one of our customers that had great success with a very simple test. And the third aspect is cloud-based applications, and we also want to go in and cover them. And we have attacks focusing on major cloud-based services such as Office 365. Web applications is is a model that we have lately added. And we understand that going to the cloud, everything is becoming more cloud-based. So you're not only moving your workloads over to cloud in the compute manner. We're also looking at the usage of services in cloud coming out from on-prem, moving into the cloud, using more SaaS-based, and we're also providing coverage for that, such as web application firewalls that we want to test, email gateways. These are all three sort of main aspects and segments of the cloud coverage architecture that we provide as a platform. Now I'm going to move over into the demo right now and show how those data plane attacks and control plane attacks also manifest in our platform. I'm going to share my screen here for a second. Okay, so to whoever is not familiar with the platform, has never seen the SafeBridge platform, we're now looking at the home screen. And the home screen here, we can see in the middle, and currently there's a test being executed. And on the bottom, we have a test timeline, and we have on the right a list of scheduled tests that will be executed. A test is the execution of multiple simulations that are aggregated into a plan. And the way we look at BAS simulation is we first begin with thinking about use cases and exploring the attack capabilities that we provide. We have the attack area in our platform, and let's take a look at how some of these areas correlate to cloud. We have our scenarios section where you can also find cloud scenarios or any use case that can be relevant for on-prem and cloud, such as ransomware. And ransomwares are not exclusive only to on-premise environments. They're relevant also for cloud. We have cloud baseline attack, and you can easily find and navigate yourself around the platform and see how any of these use cases help you or address you in migrating to the cloud and securing the cloud, how you can baseline both on-premise deployments and cloud deployments. And the next section I want to show is the playbook. And the playbook is, as it sounds, it's a big list of all of the attacks that we cover. We have close to 5,500 attacks, unique attacks, and then we enhance that into above 20,000 attack methods, which provide a very extensive capabilities for testing your security controls and validating your security posture. And what we have here is a set of filters that help you navigate how we address whether it be cloud data plane or cloud control plane. And whether you have VMs deployed in the cloud or containers, we have easy, quick, accessible filters for finding attacks that are relevant for you. Looking at some of the latest attacks that have been added, we noticed that we just added these today, the Black Matter malware and the pre-execution of it. And it was just released, if I'm not mistaken, KJ, yesterday by US Cert Alert.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So this is an example of an attack that you can really quickly access and execute it on all of your environments, whether it be installations on your cloud or your on-premise. And then we have extensive capabilities also for container deployments, which you can also select, create plans, and schedule them to be executed. And then moving on from the data plane, we'll show some of the cloud attacks that we've also support. Now, today we support out of the box AWS and Azure, with GCP on the roadmap to be also covered. And for these set of attacks, which are a little bit unique from what we had before, the cloud attacks are heavily focused on the control plane aspect of the cloud. And what we do with these attacks is we integrate natively with your cloud environments, and we create actions, and we try to mimic adversary behavior in the cloud to help you gain visibility on actions that will be executed in the cloud, and also monitor some of your roles and policies ongoing to see and identify any drift that is happening, because we know that cloud environments are very susceptible to change and new employees coming in, and it's evolving really fast. So having a baseline test to measure that is very helpful. Okay. We also provide an attack module the ability to create custom attacks, and custom attacks are pretty open code Python scripts that you can run, and you can deploy them also on your cloud to run any scenarios that we do not cover, and extend the playbook to try to sometimes empower some of the teams that are writing custom content and address those very unique use cases that you have in your organization. Okay, so running some of the attacks on cloud, I want to show how one of our customers had a great success by running a simple attack on their Azure environment. So here I'm looking at my test summaries and I'm taking a look at the Azure plan. If we can even go in and take a look at the plan itself. So here we have a long list that we have. And this was a very simple Azure plan that I created prior to this talk. And so we have some discovery attacks, attacks on Key Vault, and I was very interested in testing one specific use case that I know that our customer executed, and it was to create a blob storage. Now, of course, all these executions on cloud are done in a safe and monitored manner. And looking at this, going back to the test summary, after executing this attack, you can, of course, continue on to other areas in the platform via the CTA buttons, but I'm going to go to the simulation results and I'm going to take a look at the findings that we have. And what we have in these findings is this action, the creation of a blob storage, was executed on behalf of two different roles on my Azure environment. Now, what's interesting here is that you can extend this and run this action on behalf of multiple roles in your cloud environment, and you can test them and compare all of your access and policies across all of your roles. And here we were testing two roles that we have in our environment, a DevOps role and a read metrics that we use to gather metrics. And we saw that one of them was able to create a blob storage without intentionally being able to. If we dive into these attacks, we can take a look at the simulation logs and we can see and try to identify where and how exactly it happened. And here we can see the request being executed on behalf of the simulation. And we can see that the storage was created with this name. And of course, our platform always cleans up after itself and the storage is deleted at the end of the simulation. And if we compare this to the other role that we have, we can see that it was stopped. And if we take a look at the simulation logs, we can see that the request, it failed to create a storage due to authorization failed. So what this shows us is that simple actions can sometimes be misconfigured and this can go unnoticed in your environment. And specifically with this customer, he had no idea that one of his roles was able to create blob storages. And he also, when running this attack, he found that he had no visibility in the alerts and he had no visibilities in his local security center and SIEMs on monitoring and reacting to these actions if they were to be executed by a real adversary. Now, this list is, of course, the specific test, and this can be extended to additional tests, not only on Azure, but AWS, and you can create very flexible tests and plans around your cloud deployment, and you do not have to focus specifically on control plane. You can connect them together and extend that data plane into the control plane and try to get a full kill chain coverage with the best platform. Okay, so also with the cloud, what we ask when configuring them is simply adding credentials for specific users, and whether it be in AWS or in Azure, to create applications, and we run on behalf of them. So that's quickly covering some of the cloud capabilities that we have. Again, the whole playbook is here and is 95% of it is valuable and relevant to the cloud. What we provide is also that out-of-the-box native integration with clouds to address the control plane and very hot topics that today, whether it be visibility of cloud or misconfigurations of the cloud. Our attacks can also be customized, by the way. If we go ahead and take a look at the AWS coverage that we have. Now, the cloud provides you endless API accessibility to all of the services and actions that you can do. So we also provide customizability here. So for example, if we were to take an attack, let's say, to create an EC2 instance, if we take a look at the attack, what it does is it accesses specific cloud actions, whether it be describe images and then run instances. And what we do here is we allow you to take this attack, duplicate it, and you can change this to any cloud action. Just any cloud action that you would like to test. You can change the descriptions and the remediation data that you want to provide. And then you can go ahead into the attack actions and you can actually change the actions that you want to use. There's documentation for this, and you can also take a look at the API of AWS to find the list of all the actions that are accessible here. So you can basically cover all of the cloud aspects with the customization capabilities. We tend and strive to provide as much coverage as we can out of the box. But for some specific use cases, customizability is key. And this is what it's there for, to help you with that. You can also analyze your cloud posture with the MITRE attack board. Okay, if you have specific sets of simulators or tests that you executed, you can take a look at the heat map to try to identify some security gaps and points of interest that you want to address. In looking at some of the environments that we have on our system, we have the container environment, and you can also quickly access that and see that on behalf of the attack MITRE board and identify some areas that are key and need focus. For example, this is red. Excuse me, I'm colorblind. But looking at the masquerading attacks, we can see that all of them are not being blocked. From this view, you can easily go ahead and view the set of attacks that are being missed, whether it be masquerading, creation of services, running mimikatz on hosts. You can identify attacks easily to identify attacks that are easily missed, and you can take actions on improving your posture and doing this, of course, on a continuous basis. And with that, I would want to summarize a little bit of what we have in the cloud. So the platform itself here, it allows you to deploy simulators on your cloud environments. It allows you to integrate natively with cloud environments and deployments. Of course, your deployments and your integrations can be seen, whether it be on the system setup, you can see the integrations that you have with the cloud. On the grid management, you can see the simulators that you have deployed, whether it be the integrations that we just showed or your container environments that are also deployed. Focusing on the cloud, you can extend your on-premise testing, and you can, when migrating to the cloud, you can go ahead and test safely with no risk of impacting your production. You can test your cloud posture, and from there build a safe and bright continuation and future in your cloud. So thank you very much, KJ. I think I'll stop sharing now, and I think we can go ahead over into questions.
Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah. So we have a couple questions that are coming in here. So just one that popped up. I think that's a great question that was asked by a viewer. What are your thoughts on edge computing and IoT as vulnerable attack vectors that lack granular insight and defense capability?
Okay. KJ, you want to take that one?
You can take that one.
Okay. Regarding edge computing, just a second. Edge computing, it's how we. Can you please go over the question one more time?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. So, what are your thoughts on edge computing and IoT as a vulnerable attack vector that lacks granular insight and defense capability?
So, I want to focus on the edge computing. Well, edge computing, it brings that computation and data storage closer to the sources of data, and that's what's happening with the cloud. And the lack of insight, it could be addressed with specific tools that help you gain that granular visibility, whether it be the cloud storage, the cloud tools, or specific SIEMs or tools that you use. The edge and IoT are not synonymous specifically. I'm not a specialist in IoT, I'm sorry. But I guess security will enhance and evolve into edge computing also, and I hope we will be there also to be part of that as with breach and attack simulation. And currently in the cloud, which is very user and internet facing, and where the computation is also in the cloud, we want to be there and help gain that visibility.
Certainly. Thank you for that answer, Eliezer. One other question that came in here is, if I have a SIM and a SOAR, do I need a BAS tool on top of this?
I can take that one. So also to kind of add something to a little insight to what Eliezer was saying, obviously because edge computing companies, as Eliezer mentioned, stuff is handled, data is processed on the edge servers, and then it's kind of passed down. So at the end of the day, it's still a vulnerable attack vector. If it has an operating system, then I believe it's just a matter of being able to install our simulator on that edge server to kind of run attacks off of that. Other than that, I mean, it's just another server that we could potentially test for vulnerabilities and such. Kind of going back to the next question that Brandon asked in terms of a BAS tool, what's the need if you have a SIM and a SOAR? So obviously a SIM solution, aggregates logs, it all your alerts and events and keeps track of them. And, some companies do prefer that as their primary security operating, kind of like your primary interface. Then you have companies that have SOARs that basically take inputs from the SIM. You're building in playbooks based on what the alerts are by interfacing with all different point solutions. Now, what BAS actually does is BAS is providing you with a real-time insight of how the attack would affect your particular environment. And so if you're looking at a SIM alert, you're not looking at it in a vacuum. You're basically looking at it with the added context of, why did this attack occur? What were the related events that could have potentially triggered this attack? What were the security solutions that were involved that caused this attack to be generated? On the source side, a BAS solution is providing you those actionable insights that that we saw by say integrating with Splunk Phantom, Cortex XDR, or sorry XSOAR. You can build workflows, you can build playbooks that can help you automate the remediation of any such gap. So we are essentially wouldn't call ourselves a middleman solution, but we kind of run parallel to a BAS and a source solution where we are allowing our insights to improve the efficiencies of your overall security infrastructure. So that's my answer.
Perfect. Thank you for that answer, KJ. There. Another question that we're seeing come through here is what is your coverage for hybrid environments?
So taking a look at a hybrid environment, whether it be also multiple different or multi-cloud environments or on-premise and cloud environments, I think we showed that in the demo that we extend the hybrid to the cloud, and we also cover the similarities between them, whether it be endpoint attacks, network attacks, data exfiltration and infiltration, although it might be different than between an on-premise and a cloud attack, specifically for infiltration, but data loss protection attacks can be the same, host level attacks can be the same. So our BAS is focused heavily on that data plane that is relevant for both environments. And then specifically for the cloud environments, we extend that also to the control plane where we interact natively with the cloud providers. And we try to integrate and test them to cover that new attack surface that evolves with configurations and giving over the whole configuration aspect to the cloud provider. And so that's our coverage for hybrid environments.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for that answer, Eliezer, and KJ. Thank you for presenting, both of you, today. Unfortunately, I think we're running up on the end of our session here. So I do want to thank you for jumping on and giving that talk today. And thank you for everybody chiming in with the questions. If you do have any other questions or looking for more details, I encourage you to visit our website, safebreach.com, and you can find more details and all the information you need there. So without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and just end the talk there. So thank you, guys.